All right, hi everyone. My name is David, and this is a two-shot of Cthulhu Dark, the kind of rules light version of the classic Call of Cthulhu rule set. This is a Jason Morningstar scenario titled "The Black Drop," and we have with us three PCs who will be joining us on an expedition to the southern Kerguelen Islands, just north of Antarctica, but frankly south of everything else. The basic setup for the scenario, as we've mentioned before in our character creation and prep, is that the characters are aboard a well-appointed French-flagged motor sailor in the year 1937. The ship is called the Austral, and with a crew of 6 and plentiful space for cargo and passengers, the Austral's current task is to load the colonists' possessions from a failed sheep colony called Port Couvrot and bring them home. This colony is the last effort of the French government to make the Kerguelen Islands into something habitable to humanity, but because whaling and seal hunting have become utterly unprofitable, and the place is so remote that no one will ever visit by chance, and the environment is so hostile to life that the sheep can't thrive, they've essentially called it a day and are shipping everybody out. The French government has no intent of, at least at this point in history, bringing anyone back to the Kerguelen Islands, and no other nation for that matter does either. So this is the last opportunity for our PCs to conduct any amount of business in the Kerguelen Islands, possibly for the rest of their lives. And speaking of PCs, let's go through and do a quick round of character introductions. We will go ahead and start with Jason.
Hey, I'm Jason. I use he, him pronouns. I'm playing Olivier. He is a he, him also. And he is a French sailor. He's a wiry, small guy. He's weathered, so he could be anywhere from 30 to 70 years old. He's completely uneducated. His life has been on the seas, the South Seas. He's been all over Antarctica, South America, South Africa, Australia. And he's just along on the ship as a crew member.
All right. And that brings us over to Brandon.
Hi, I'm Brandon. My character is Dr. Harriet Adams, a woman who is an adventurous naturalist. Her specialty is entomology, but she's well versed in tramping around strange countrysides and cataloging animals and plants. She is here for the unparalleled opportunity of cataloging the unknown flora and fauna of a more or less completely nondescript area, and hopefully settling a lot of scientific arguments back home as a result.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Nicholas.
Hi, I'm playing Johnny Redclaw, pronouns he, him, a private investigator who is trying to disprove a claim of family relation. So someone out in Europe wants to know that a specific individual does not belong to one of the families on this island.
So a bit of genealogy research is happening.
Genealogy investigation.
All right. And that is where we will begin the story. I want to officially begin with a dream that is being shared by Dr. Adams and Mr. Johnny Redclaw. Now, the two of you have already been having a difficult time sleeping at the outset of this story. The islands themselves are close to the 50-degree south latitude mark, where the Arctic or Antarctic circumpolar current, I think it's called, it really begins to pick up. The further south you go, the worse the seas get. And at this point, the two of you have probably gotten seasick at least once or twice a day. And this is a 8-day journey out of Cape Town, South Africa, and you're pretty much on day 7 at this point. So dreaming has been pretty rough to begin with, but the dreams that the two of you will begin with are particularly unnerving. You are being tossed back and forth, side to side in the cargo hold where you are trying to at least get some rest out of the daylight that streams in through all the various cracks and windows in the ship. And the two of you, unbeknownst to each other, are going to share a dream in which you see before you a lush, thriving tropical landscape. Before you are all manner of giant trees, tropical, deciduous, coniferous, all manner of great ancient insects, large and prehistoric, crawling up and down the bark of these things. The air is humid, it is tropical. There is a great golden disk of sunlight hanging omnipotently over everything. And then it begins to turn black. The sun, golden and vibrant, lush with life, will begin to transmute into this almost opalescent black disk, shimmering like an oil slick on a hot day. And as it does so, the air begins to become dry. The trees begin to wither. The insects begin to screech in this perverse unison. And everything begins to rot as the dirt begins to harden into these deep black slats of volcanic rock. In the distance, you hear almost this collective scream. And something about it in the very distance tells you that this is not one person, but rather entire civilizations that are screaming out as the earth itself begins to die. And the unusual thing about it all is that you get the sense that this is not a dream of things that have happened in the ancient past, so much as it is a premonition of things to come. And you get the very, very distinct sense that yourself and everyone you've ever known and loved is inevitably going to die, and soon. I would like to get some insight rolls from the two of you as you are shaken awake from this nightmare. Let's start with Dr. Adams, if you would. Just roll a single d6, and if it is greater than 1, which it is, your insight goes up to 2.
Yes, I wake up with a terrible headache.
And Johnny, if you would. Bad luck, that's also a 2. So your insight goes up to 2. And you can mark that on the character keeper. Harriet, you are shaken awake by the husband of the only other passengers on this ship. Like I said, the Austral is staffed by a crew of 6, including Olivier. But it also has 2 additional passengers, a couple, husband and wife, by the name of Edgar Delarue and André Delarue, both French. They have taken quite an interest in you, Harriet, since the beginning of your voyage, as they are also both naturalists. They claim to be coming to the Kerguelen Islands on a fossil hunting expedition, searching for 14-million-year-old carnivorous tree fossils of the species Araucariaceae amid the lignite strata of ancient volcanic flows. André is shaking you awake with great concern. Dr. Adams, she says, kind of shaking you awake. Are you quite all right? You're tossing and turning. Dr. Adams, please wake up.
Oh, oh, oof, I'm so sorry. I was almost stuporous in my sleep. I can't recall having had such a vivid and disturbing set of dreams. You don't happen to have any headache powders, do you?
Oh, I'm sure we could find something, she says, and she smiles, almost as if you're trying to play a little bit of a joke on her. We have something. You were just dreaming? And she will kind of pat your hand playfully, if not a bit flirtatiously.
I've been having trouble sleeping with the ship tossing and turning so much in these ridiculous seas. Oof. I think I shall confine my wanderings to land for the most part after this voyage.
Well, you certainly are a novice to maritime expedition, aren't you? That's
Well,
all right.
I've well, I've been to Tierra del Fuego, but that passage, although violent, was very short. But I'd never been in the high southern latitudes before. However, I've been in Congo, but the perils of that journey, frankly, I would gladly embrace in lieu of seasickness.
Well, this far south, the seas are a completely different beast. They don't call them the Furious 50s for nothing. But as it is morning. If you'd like to come up to the top deck, we'd be pleased to have you.
Of course, especially with your coffee.
You're very sweet.
Won't give a chance to miss that.
Well,
has the weather broken to some degree, at least since last night?
It is only going to get worse, I'm afraid.
Oh, good. Thank goodness we have just one more day of this.
Just one more day. In the meantime, if you need anywhere to rest your head, let me know.
I think you're very kind. But I think I might have imagined one of your trees last night.
Really?
Certainly, yeah, it must have been after our conversation. It's a giant, a landscape full of prehistoric-looking trees, huge conifers and cycads, I believe, and a number of other things. So vivid, I could sketch them for you. But of course, that wouldn't help you very much since they're imaginary.
She smiles rather playfully. I'm so pleased to know you were thinking of me.
Well, we are both in the same way of things, as it were, and it's been so good to have you and your husband too, someone to talk about refined scientific matters with. I was afraid that I'd have to journal this entire trip to keep from being bored stiff.
Well, if you are so terribly bored and cannot find it in your heart to give me some amount of company, there is, of course.
No, I'm coming. For goodness sake.
Well, I just wanted to say.
I was saying to the contrary. Your and your husband's conversations kept my mind from falling slack during this past week. I'm more used to traveling in rougher company.
Well, if you have need of something to stimulate your mind, there is the library on board the ship. Just one shelf, but it might have something of interest to you. As it is, what you need is coffee. Dark.
Coffee and conversation. And if you could also order up a horizon that stays put, that would be sublime.
And I think we will go over to Johnny at this point. Johnny, you are not so lucky. No one is waking you up with flirtatious offers of coffee and good conversation.
I think I awake screaming, "They're gonna die! They're all gonna die!" And then the eyes like flash open.
At this point, you find yourself in your makeshift sort of bed in your quarters. By the look of it, it appears to be the beginnings of morning, but it's hard to say as contained as you are within this hulk of a ship. Below you lies the cargo hold, and of course there are any number of sailors or others who you might wish to speak with, investigate, or talk with. Is there anything that you might like to do at this point?
I think that like as reality sinks in and I'm readjusting to sea versus this cataclysmic landscape, my face just turns green and I go running to the edge of the deck and have to empty my vomit again. And I think that Johnny does not like the sea at all. And so he's going to try and just hunker down and ignore the fact that the ocean is not treating him well.
Harriet and Olivier, both of you will see Johnny rush past in the throes of seasick nausea.
Yeah.
The ship is small enough that you get zero privacy if something like this is happening. Everyone will know.
I'll go over to him and I'll offer him my flask and I'll say, get a hit of this. This is old sailor's remedy.
Oh, thank you.
Horrible rot gut.
That's really good. And I
just keep drinking it and you'll sleep just fine.
Yep. So now I know exactly what Johnny's doing. He's emptying the bottle.
I guess you did say he had a history of drinking too much. Did you say that?
I did say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny is going to be probably a bit intoxicated by noon, by the looks of it. Olivier, I want to cut over to you just briefly. As this goes on, the captain of the Austral, a good friend of yours, someone you've traveled with many, many voyages in the past, a man by the name of Louis Radel, calls to you. Olivier, come get a look at this. This is interesting.
Yes, sir.
And
I'll hurry over.
He is next to the radio on the bridge of the ship. We're picking up some shortwave radio traffic. Someone else is out here. He's fiddling with the radio, trying to get it to kind of tune in.
Yeah, that's strange. We shouldn't be anybody around here.
It's a fiddly pain in the ass kind of damn piece of junk shit. And he's cursing to himself as he tries to get the radio to work. You're able to kind of make out some sort of broken voices kind of coming in and out, but it's very difficult to pick up on anything in particular. If you'd like, however, you may investigate.
Captain, let me give a try of that. I've been fiddling with this thing for months now. I think I got a feel for it. I'll sidle up and I'll do what I can. So yeah, maybe make a roll, an investigation.
Certainly.
Uh, is my experience as a South Sea sailor apply here?
I think that's reasonable. You have fiddled around with this piece of shit radio before and are a little bit more attuned to it than perhaps the old sea captain is.
And I'm going to include my insight die. Why not?
Why not?
All
Three
right, here we
dice.
go. All right. Oh,
Woohoo!
now it has to be higher though, right? To make an insight roll. Is that right?
Well,
Yes.
except that you got a 6.
Yeah, I got it. Oh, then the 6 means I have to make. I'm going to find out something upsetting. So I'm going
Yes.
to end up making an insight roll regardless. You want me to do that now, or should we find out what's upsetting and then?
Let's
do it?
go ahead and see if your insight goes up first.
Okay. All right. Here we go. It sure does.
Your insight goes to 2 as well. But the good news is that you find out virtually everything you could discover from this particular clue. What immediately comes to mind is that they're clearly speaking German. This is German shortwave radio traffic. You aren't perhaps fluent in German, but you know a bit, and you can tell that the transmissions are coming from a vessel called the Tenerife, which seems to likewise be bound for the Kerguelen Islands, although what the hell else would they be going toward in this kind of isolated environment? What's really strange is that they seem to be sending messages to loved ones back in Germany via shortwave. Farewell messages. They seem to be saying goodbye, but in a rather conclusive sort of way. There is a finality to their voices, a grim finality. Because, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, strangest thing, Captain. These Germans, they're saying goodbye to their families. Can we send a message out to them, see if they need some help?
There's no reason why we couldn't, I suppose. I mean, what is this? Just he scratches his head with some kind of confusion, taken aback that there's anyone else out here. Just reach out, see if any assistance is needed.
Yeah.
Very, very well. He pushes the microphone your way. You do it.
So maybe with a broken little bit of German I've learned in the various ports I've stopped in, I'll say something like, this is the Austral. We're on our way to Kerguelen. Do you need any assistance on Tenerife?
I think you receive, well, literally radio silence. Their transmissions abruptly stop. It's almost as if, oh shit, we've been caught, and it's dead quiet now. No further transmissions come from the ship. Now, that being said, the sense of finality does weigh on you, and you do get this rather forbidding sense that the Germans, and perhaps by extension you, are traveling toward what may be a significantly more dangerous situation than you originally anticipated. And I think that might represent the increase to your insight die.
Yeah, I'll reach over to Johnny. I'll get my flask back and take a good heavy swig.
So I'm curious, Harriet, cutting back to you. Is there anything that you might like to do? There's no expectation that there is, but anything that you might like to do during the time that you have the remaining day on the Austral?
Let's see. Presumably that I've spoken to the Delarus on more than one occasion.
Yes, you have Edgar and Andre.
I didn't know that there were any books on board. And Andre's comment about that makes me curious. even the merest guidebook on the Kerguelen Islands could be invaluable for if we're going to be trekking around it.
Absolutely. You are welcome then, if you so choose, to crawl about in the library. It's just one shelf. It's divided equally between lurid French dime novels and academic books on the Southern Ocean.
Well, is there anything that's remotely applicable to our jaunt here?
Oh,
I mean, I like a dime novel as well as the next person, and my French is good enough for most of the illusions. They're not writing for the most educated audience, after all.
I think there might be, but you would have to roll to see.
Okay. Well, then I shall. In the spirit of such things, I'll roll 2 dice. So I'm rolling in my insight die.
I think that your profession might also apply here. I mean, you're obviously well educated and know how to flip through a book.
Well, then I'll just use my professional die.
That's fine.
So looking at anything interesting here? Oh, look.
You'll find some really interesting things with a 6.
Very, very interesting.
Go ahead and roll your insight die, and on a 3+, your insight will increase.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe I should have made this a one-shot after all. Well, you'll find quite a bit of interesting stuff. What you'll find at a bare minimum is a lot of information about the kind of notes pertaining to the history of the Kerguelen Islands. There are actually a lot of handouts that I will put in the Google Drive whenever we take our first break. Basically just a lot of information about the history of the various expeditions. There are notes about the colony. It is called the Compagnie Générale des Îles Kerguelen, and it speaks a bit about the climatic conditions, the flora and fauna of the islands, the species of phenogramous plants and so forth that are composed on the island. They're big handouts, and I don't want to read them aloud, so I'm just going to put those in the Google Drive during our first break. But you'll get quite a bit of information out of the library. Anything relevant will be contained within those handouts. Now, on a 6+, though, you get a little something extra. It's the strangest thing. You weren't expecting to find a heavily annotated collection of the old occultist Louis Jacqueliot's books. But you see many ramblings as you flip through, tossed and turned about the sea, about the fabled lost continent of Lemuria, its terrifying occupants, and the apocalyptic fate that befell them. It's all mythology to you, surely, but it strikes you a little bit as mirroring the story of Atlantis, if Atlantis were evil and profane and composed of a civilization worshiping dark and old gods.
Well, I can see why this is printed on robust paper. If it had been done on onion skin, it might have burst into flame. Some of these descriptions. Fascinating. I wonder what the Delarues will make of this.
I think speaking...
If I can just get some of this. I thought I've read more than one book on... I've read more than one book describing human sacrifice rituals, but none as graphic as this
one. They're quite detailed for the time in which they were written.
Yes. Most authors have the good taste to bowdlerize their accounts for the sake of their readership. But, who knows how much of this is true and how much of it is just Jokayu's demented imagination. So yes, I will go in and find the Delarus to show them my find.
I think that you'll find them kind of gathered around a table. And if I may kind of insert you into the scene, Johnny, I would say that you're sitting there with Edgar, who is not necessarily trying to nurse you back to health, but he seems to be trying to make sure you're doing okay.
And I think I'm just mumbling to Edgar, horrible, horrible nightmares. I haven't got a good night's sleep in so long, and man, I hope I don't have that sort of nightmare again. That was just horrible.
Now, in contrast to his perhaps over flirtatious wife, Edgar himself is a rough man, equal parts woolly explorer and bookworm.
Right.
He's fiddling around with his spectacles as he leans in to hear about your dreams. He says, "What are these dreams you're telling me of?"
Oh yeah, no, I just, man, and it felt so real at the time. I swear I was there, and it was just, I don't know how I got a sense of time, but it feels like it just brought forth like inevitability and dread. It's like it's going to happen, and and the sun turned black. It was oily on the surface. Everything was withering and drying, and just a cacophony of insects screaming. It was just, if I have another nightmare like that, I'm not going on another trip like this.
What an unusual dream. Did you dream of a tropical landscape?
Yeah, it started tropical.
Trees like this one. Then I sketch a tree.
I think that freaks Johnny out a little bit. It's like, that was the dreamland. This is the non-dreamland. And so I think he like pushes that away and says, "Where the fuck did you get that?"
I had a very similar dream.
That's not right. People don't share dreams.
I've heard of people sharing hallucinations before, but that was taking the compound ayahuasca. And I doubt there's a native hallucination to be had within quite a distance of here. This is what I was talking about. I say to the Delarus, a tropical landscape, and it occurs to me, this is just a strange little thing, and perhaps this was that Kerguelen Islands were tropical, weren't they? According to the geological research that has been done at one point. It was it was considered to be a much warmer climate. I distinctly remember reading that.
Edgar affixes a very tolerant smile to his face. He speaks easily but with certainty and says, "Yes. Well, as a matter of fact, some 20 odd million years ago, that was the case."
Yes. Well, it's in the island has mostly sunk, or the ocean's risen. Take your pick. Right. There's a whole shelf of a geological shelf. The seafloor is only about 1 kilometer down. It's a shame that that we don't have submersibles that can explore it. But of course, not in these waters. That would be too difficult. Maybe one day they'll be able to do that.
I certainly
She
hope
says,
so.
and Harriet is kind of staring into the distance as she's describing this because she's not sure what to make of the dream. So she's gone into sort of science talk. Yes. Maybe perhaps we dreamed of the Kerguelens as it was so many million years ago. How singular. That's strange. That's a strange dream, don't you think?
Yeah, it must be where we're visiting. That is so strange. I was reading a lot on the genealogy before we departed. Maybe there was some shred of this, any motions at your illustration in there.
Oh, that reminds me. I say, producing the little book and laying it on the table. I found I found some remarkable books in the ship's little library. Certainly, I was hoping to find that, at best, to find perhaps an explorer's guidebook, to the islands that might spare us some time in making our way to the more difficult sections without too much trouble. But in actuality, I found this odd little volume by a fellow named Jacolio. Are you familiar with him?
To whom are you addressing the question?
I'll address it to Andre Delaro.
Andre, sort of, as is tradition, will smile and say, well, I thought I was the only fan of him. You too?
Oh, I've just found this. I've heard of Jacolio. I can't say I don't believe I've ever read any of his accounts. They're somewhat fanciful, aren't they? And disturbing.
But wouldn't they be so interesting if they were real?
Oh, if they were real, but I mean, he writes about things as if they happened a very long time ago. So presumably they're not. If they were real, they're not real anymore. I mean, Lemuria is supposed to have sunk beneath the waves like Atlantis, right? That's why some people think that it's that the Kerguelens might be Lemuria.
So you
the
would think
same way that some of the sunken islands off Crete are thought to be Atlantis.
She just kind of puts her elbow on the table and rests her chin on her hand and just kind of looks at you with her head cocked to one side. And you get the sense that she's listening to you, but it doesn't really seem to be registering. She has this sort of unsettling, frank gaze about her as she looks at you. It's the sort of fervor that one rarely sees outside a monastery. She seems quite fascinated by you. And the more you talk, the worse it gets.
At some point, I will catch this gaze and look back at her for a moment, and then I'll laugh. I can't recall ever having such a rapt audience for my musings. But at any rate, you're much more versed in this sort of thing, I say, waving the book, than I. What do you think?
Well, as a matter of fact, if such things are real, maybe we might encounter some of them. We are doing something of a geological expedition, aren't we, hon? And she looks over at Edgar, who is got his nose firmly implanted in the book that you have rested on the table. He either didn't notice or doesn't care about her obvious affections toward you. He looks up and simply says, "Oh, yes, of course, geology, indeed," and looks back down. You don't actually get the sense that he is interested in geology. Johnny, you probably would pick up on this, especially so. And Olivia, you are overhearing all of this.
You've been getting into those strange books. One of you other naturalists left those here before. Never saw that guy. Disappeared.
Yes, I mean, quite unexpected. The perils of Pauline, I expected, but not Jacques. So, Edgar, this one's new to you. You've not encountered it before by your fervor with which you're scanning the book.
He adjusts his glasses. I have not read this before, but it's very, very interesting. And for a moment, you have a thought cross your mind that you have no idea how these two could have possibly fallen in love with one another.
Yeah, no, it crossed my mind long before this. But the opposites attract, so to say. The question is whether they're still in love now. I mean, I know the French. I know the French well enough to know their reputation, but even so, it's usually the gentleman who spreads his affections around. The ladies are much more reserved.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No.
I have a way of talking over people accidentally. I think that we might close the scene there with Andre's eyes like crystals locked into yours, Harriet. And Johnny, you're noticing rather vacant, if not suspicious, behavior coming from her husband. I want to skip ahead here and ask if there are any last matters that folks would care to attend to before we make landfall.
No.
So
No,
then
I don't think so. Once I get once I get the book back, I will read it a little further gently. But I probably won't learn anything more than I already have by the time we make landfall.
And I think that's maybe what will happen here. We will watch as the day passes in a combination of boredom and seasickness. And the night comes along as predicted by Andre. The weather is worse than the night before, and the two of you are up for much of the evening trying to contain your food. Olivier, you sleep soundly if you so choose. And at morning, I think there is the blast of a foghorn rousing the three of you from your slumber. As you scramble top deck, you will look out, and through the gale force winds and cold rain spitting down perpetually from dark gray clouds obscuring the sky, you will see the coast of the Kerguelen's main island.
Hallelujah.
Of course, and unsurprisingly, it is almost a picture perfect image of the dream that Johnny and Harriet had 2 nights prior. And I think on that note, we are at about the halfway point of the session. So I'm thinking let's take 10. I'll put some stuff on the Google Drive and I'll see everyone back here somewhere between, 32 and 35, perhaps.
Okay.
See everyone in Jiff. And so we last left with the 3 of you top deck, seeing the coastline of the forbidding Kerguelen Islands for the first time. And foreboding they are. Port Couvreau is one of the most bleak and oppressive settlements imaginable, you think, as the Austral makes landfall. It hardly even qualifies as a port, really. It consists of a protected anchorage and a very small quadrangle of dull gray buildings, all fashioned completely incongruously in a rural French style. 3 of these appear to be family homes, complete with porches that are utterly useless in the relentless howling winds. The 4th appears to be a shed for the shearing of sheep, but there are no sheep in sight. The beach is littered with rusting hulks of odd machinery, the remnants of the seal oil industry. The sky, when not obscured by the stinging rain, is an alarming, almost crystalline blue, vivid and upsetting. But unless I say otherwise, it is constantly windy and constantly raining. To the south and west of the port lie an imposing range of snowy hills with a glaciated mountain beyond them, and you folks came in from the northeast, surrounded by a complicated series of islands and bays. The feeling of isolation is utter and palpable. In sheer distance, this place is as far from civilization as it is possible to be and still find people alive. And to the 2 of you who are American, Johnny and Harriet, you are almost on the diametric opposite of where you grew up. If you were to draw a straight line through a globe of your hometowns, you wouldn't end up far off of the Kerguelens. But these are not completely unoccupied buildings. As a matter of fact, standing out on these windswept and howling porches, you see a company of 4 women who, having heard the foghorn of the Austral, have gathered to receive you. They appear to be a mishmash of ages: an older matronly woman, a middle-aged woman, a young 20-somethings who looks quite haggard and stressed, by the way, and finally a girl perhaps of an older teenage age, who stands beside the middle-aged woman. You suspect they are related, but from the distance of the Austral, you can't make out much more of their features than that. As it stands, you can hardly make out much of anything, with the wind stinging into your eyes and the rain already beginning to soak your clothes. Olivier, Captain Louis Radel turns to you, says, "Well, Olivier, this is where I leave you. 2 weeks, we will return. And if you wouldn't mind, supervision of the draining of oil, the hammering of boards over the homes, and the general packing of provisions, that responsibility falls to you."
Sure thing, Captain. Don't tarry now. I don't want to stay at this place any longer than I have to. I'll kiss my crucifix.
2 weeks' time, he says, nodding to you with an extraordinarily wrinkled face. Wispy white hair, or what's left of it, kind of blowing in the breeze. 2 weeks' time.
Is this like we'll take like a motor launch into shore, or is there a dock that we'll be getting off onto?
I think that the kind of a motor launch, sort of a skiff of sorts, might be the way to go. There's certainly not a dock that I can think of, at least not one that works well.
Not for a seagoing ship like this. So yeah, anyone else staying with me, Captain? That's going to be also awfully lonely, though there's some ladies there.
Well,
We seem to have a welcoming committee in this weather. Goodness. I brush the water off of my tarpaulin hat. You know, at least I'm dressed for the wet.
You want to ease your stomach, get some time on land, Johnny?
I'm not staying a moment on this ship any longer than I can. I would like some breakfast to stay down, please.
Same. I'm so done with this ship.
Nothing against the good vessel, but I'll be glad of the respite. And 2 weeks is enough time. Barely. Well, it's not enough time by a factor of 5, but it'll have to do.
Well, grab your bags. I got the launch ready to go.
Oh, I've got them right here.
Yep, packed and ready.
I'm used to sudden changes of transportation. Got my sample case, a couple of changes of clothing, supplies for camping and fire making and such. Ready. Aye, aye, as they say.
I think we get on board. Let's go to shore.
the remaining 5 sailors will bring out all kinds of cargo to be dropped off with you, consisting mainly of mail, newspapers from civilization, and a bevy of fresh fruits and vegetables that I'm sure the citizens of Port Couvreau will be excited to have. They will load them onto the skiff with you and send you on your way.
Okay. We got to fight off that scurvy. I had a bout of scurvy and I'll show them my teeth, like where I have like 3 teeth missing. Yeah, you get scurvy. It's a bad thing.
Surely they grow green stuff on this island. They've all have perished long since.
You probably would have heard rumor of the infamous Kerguelen cabbage that grows inland.
Yes. Cabbages are remarkably hardy things, really. You have to hit them with a club and they won't die.
Whole fields of them just growing out under a profane and desolate sky.
Yes.
So you're told. Well, as it stands, you will make landfall. And the women will have sort of different reactions to you. The rather, shall we say, skittish looking one, who appears to be haggard and unkempt with unwashed hair, she seems to hold back and keeps to her house. The matronly one will approach you. And the very kind of shall we say proud-looking middle-aged one with her assumed daughter, she will stand out as the obvious leader among them, and will venture up to see you. They greet you with a sudden influx of long missed humanity. There is a mix of delight and trepidation among them. They are happy that you're here, but also probably not very used to outsiders. This is probably more odd for them than it is for you.
Ladies, my name's Olivier. We're here to help you pack up. The Austral's going to be returning in 2 weeks, and we'll all be getting on board and taking you back to civilization. I hear that you may have 3 families, though. Are there any menfolk or your children around?
But of course, allow me to introduce myself, says the upright leader of the woman. My name is Pamela Ménager, and that will stand out to Johnny. I believe that is the family that you're looking after. Welcome to Port Couvreau. And yes, you will have noticed that the menfolk are out. They are inland tending to the sheep, but we have made arrangements for your lodging. You may fit 3 to a house. I don't recommend sleeping in the sheep shed, but I suppose you could. And she will be pointing and illustrating these points very physically as she kind of shows you what the different cottages, who lives in who and where everything is. Frankly, there's not much to show off. But what you do notice is that she and her daughter, who she introduces as Leon, they both are striking in that they are wearing these very beautiful, delicate pieces of jewelry, necklaces that are decorated with a brilliant crystal shard, the kind of shard that, Harriet, it reminds you a bit of Andre's eyes. And to Olivier, it reminds you a bit of the all too blue, lurid, vivid sky that overhangs the islands. They draw no attention to them, but it's completely unmistakable, the sight of them wearing these crystals. And as a matter of fact, the kind of haggard one who's hanging back, she seems to be wearing one as well.
What extraordinary necklaces you have. Excuse me, we're on the manners. I'm Dr. Harriet Adams. I'm a scientist. Come to catalog some of your animals and plants before everyone leaves here, and we don't get a chance to do so. But where on earth did you get them?
Where on earth did they get what?
The necklaces. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no, but by all means, of course, these are actually from inland. They are interesting crystal shards. They're all over the inland island. Adele's husband fashioned them for us. He is something of an amateur jeweler from back in France. And when she says the word Adele, she motions to the haggard, unkempt woman who is now sort of shirking back into the darkness of her home, kind of peering around from around the threshold of the door, looking at you with wild eyes, and you hear faintly the crying of a baby coming from inside her home.
Is Miss Adele well? I say to Pamela.
She, poor thing. I think that the desolation and the loneliness has gotten to her. Such stories she tells, conspiracies, evil, the devil, such a pity. I think it will do her good to get her back to the mainland.
I dare say. Well, it does seem to be a challenging environment for anyone to live, but I will definitely need to find one of these crystal shards to take back. I have a colleague who will, a mineralogist who will want it for his collection.
Well, we certainly have no shortage of those here. It's a pleasure to see you, like I said. But please, let's get you inside. Let's get you, and she starts kind of moving into community organizer mode. Let's get you brought into, I think you would do well either staying with us. You could also stay with her. And she says, motioning to the more matronly looking woman. Yeah, I mean, whichever one you'd like, but please, let's get you up and in. And I think, Johnny, you will notice at this point that Leon, her daughter, like I said, probably late teens, very, very early 20s at the absolute oldest, has been gazing at you somewhat timidly, but with no shortage of interest during this. She is quite striking in appearance.
Sounds like a good opportunity to learn more about the Mangers. Pronunciation, last name.
The pronunciation, I have emphasis, Menage. or Menage.
Menage.
I literally had to go and Google how to pronounce all these names.
Yeah.
3 years of Spanish in high school is the extent of my non-English experience. So that's the pronunciation I put it in the chat, have for them. I think it's Menage.
Oh, thank you.
Menage, literally
Menage.
menage, literally householder. So.
So yeah, I'm gonna talk to Leon and say, Leon, I have some questions about
Well, let's get inside, for goodness sake.
Oh yes, of course.
But of course, Pamela says, of course, and we will make sure to cook you all dinner tonight. We have all these fresh fruits and vegetables, and you, by all means, are entitled to them as much as we are. So we'll get those to Claudette, and this is the matronly woman. She's pointing to Claudette. We'll get those to Claudette, and we will have that going for tonight. But in the meantime, might I offer you some tea or something else to drink?
You go ahead, folks. I'm gonna hang back and start unloading the boat, okay?
As you wish. Yes, tea would be lovely.
Olivier, I would gladly offer you a hand.
Well, it's up to you.
A little physical
I'm not getting
activity would be
paid to
good
do
after being cooped up on the boat so long.
Okay.
Not I. There'll be plenty of physical activity in tomorrow and the next day. I'll go inside.
So Pamela will bring you back to the Menage home, and all three homes, by the way, are utterly open to you. The women will divide them amongst you for sleeping purposes. The dwellings are rather cramped, but they're all open to you. And at this point, I think Leon, if you or Johnny, if you and Leon would like, you can also speak with one another in the Menage home, but you can also do this elsewhere if you need more privacy. I'll leave it to you what you'd like to do.
I think the home is fine, and I think that eventually. So the conversation is, I'm been hired as part of a private research services company. Actually, I own the company, and we have a contract to learn a little bit more about name. Dominique, who departed the island 50 years ago. Do you have any records of maybe your grandparents? Any relation sound familiar at all?
She sort of draws her arms in close to her and touches her face a bit, and she seems to think very carefully before she speaks. Well, no, as I don't think so. What did you say the name was? Dominique?
Dominique, yes. Dominique Menage.
Why, that name doesn't stand out to me. My grandfather's name was, and it's far above my abilities as a GM to come up with French names off the top of my head, but she'll give you a name.
Yep. I think Pamela's probably there as well. And it's like, what about you, Pamela? Do you have any record or recollection of Dominique?
I think at this point we might have you go ahead and roll and see kind of what you're able to come up with. And just to make sure I understand this right, you've been hired to confirm that they in fact do not have any connection to Dominique, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think that's it. We want to prove that this island, there's no connection there. So create a paper trail that basically says, never seen him, never heard of him.
Understand. Got it. So this is going to be a classic 2 dice by default, because this definitely falls in line with your profession. If you so choose, you can put your insight die in there too, though.
You know, I might as well. That is a little too much information, I think. That is a 6.
That's a 6. Insight die is not high, but it doesn't make a difference. So let's get you to roll once more and see if your insight goes up.
All 3 dice or 1 die for the reroll?
Well, this is just an insight roll, so this is always just 1 die.
Okay, that's what makes sense. That is a 5.
All right. I think that kicks you up to a 3, doesn't it?
It does.
Oh boy. So I think Pamela will almost talk your ear off at this point. She gives you a comprehensive history of the Ménager family tree and tells you exactly who you would talk to and where you would go back in France to prove it. She gives you names, she gives you locations of government offices that have cataloged this information. She did not bring any such materials with her to a sheep colony, of course, but she has a remarkably well-kept I think sense of what her family lineage is. You will almost immediately get at least everything you need to know in order to wrap this case up when you're back on the mainland.
And so I think like that afternoon, because we arrived in the morning, right?
Sure.
Is Johnny sitting at a table making copious notes in some stationery that he brought that just outlines all the facts that he's just discovered. And probably the happiest you've seen Johnny in quite a while, who's lives for this sort of thing.
Certainly. Olivier, are you in fact working to unload the boats over the course of the morning, or is there any additional stuff that you would like to do on your end?
So I think I grab a crate and I start carrying it over to, I think you said there was like a sheep shack kind of thing.
Yep.
So I think, that's a good place to, but something doesn't smell right. So I set it down and I pack my pipe and I'm just going to kind of wander the grounds and just kind of smell the air and look around, see what I see.
Certainly. Let's go ahead and have you just make a generic kind of investigation roll to just see if you notice anything. And I think this would just be 1 die unless you'd like to throw your insight in there too.
Yeah, let's throw that in there. Why not?
Stick your nose in places it doesn't belong. And it worked.
And it goes up.
A lot of 6s.
Yeah.
Well, let's have an insight roll.
My insight. Oh, you do. Okay, I forgot.
You still have to make the roll.
Yeah, I have to make the roll.
I think it's a little bit different from how other successors to the game do things.
Yeah, Alan's game, you just automatically edit. But yeah, here we go. Yeah, it goes up. Okay, so
3s all around.
Yeah, sounds about right. But I did get a 6.
Certainly. So, I think that what you'll do is you'll get a very intimate understanding of the layout of all of Port Couvrot. The shearing shed is far from convivial. It has all manner of rusty chains draped over dilapidated pens. Tools of sheep husbandry hang from pegs all about. Tablecloths and kerosene lanterns do almost nothing to cheer the place up. And the entire area smells of kelp and all things sheep. The whole thing is really quite disgusting. Now,
are there actually any sheep around? I wonder.
Curiously, no.
Yeah.
No, not a single sheep to be seen. Allegedly, the men are inland tending to them, but you haven't seen a sheep since you landed.
Okay.
You've smelled a lot of sheep. You've smelled a lot of rotting kelp, and you've smelled a very strong whiff of elephant seal oil. But not an actual sheep to be seen. Now, one thing that does stand out to you, though, is as you kind of are perusing the back of the various houses, you hear the crying of Adele's baby inside her house. You see Claudette cooking away in her house. As you get to the Ménager household, you see a small workshop attached to the house, kind of out back. You didn't see it before. As a matter of fact, it's sort of tucked away in back. You wouldn't have been able to see it from the Austral. But as you kind of glance inside, you'll notice that there is what at first seems to be a workshop for the storing of seal rendering equipment. There's this scent of burnt seal oil all about. You see a crude workbench, a number of kerosene lanterns. But most interestingly, you find a small chest as you kind of peer in through a window, containing fine tools for jewelry making and a metal box next to it that seems to be not necessarily hidden, but certainly tucked away. And beside it, a shard of that strange crystal that both Leon, Pamela, and Adele wear.
Well, Olivier's an honest guy, so he'll take a look at it, but he's gonna, he'll leave everything where it is. But I'll take a peek in that Pandora's box. I'll look at that crystal, sure.
No, you would have to go inside to do that. Is that
okay.
how you want to
No,
proceed?
he probably would not. No, he's curious, but no, he's not going to intrude.
I think that you will certainly get the very distinct sense, though, that there is something wrong with those crystal shards. Something about them, just watching the way the light reflects off it through the dirty, salt-stained window that you are peering through, tells you that something about those crystal shards is wrong. They are not naturally occurring.
Yeah, I'll kiss my crucifix again and say a little prayer, and I'll turn away, shaking my head.
Now, I want to turn to Dr. Adams. Johnny is speaking with Leon, and Pamela is regaling you with the details around their family history. Is there anything that you might want to do at this point?
So with the so I say, well, I had to leave as much space for specimen cases and what have you. So my packing has been somewhat spare, but I did bring something that I can share. And she reaches in, rummages into one bag, and she says, "I always bring along a little something to make the camping trip a little less oppressive." And she puts a couple of little packets down, and she says, "Cinnamon and black pepper, and please feel free to take some."
Pamela likes you now quite a lot. She says you had better get those over to Claudette. She will make such good use of those tonight. Thank you so much for bringing those along. It has been so long since I've tasted anything like a spice.
Yes, well, it's when you have to cook your own food out in the wild, even the tiniest pinch of real pepper, and it makes all the difference.
Here, let me show you to her, and she will,
by all means.
She will guide you to the next house over, and you'll find Claudette in there. She is the eldest of the women, and she has a very matronly sort of quality to her. She is perpetually good-natured.
I'll call her Mademoiselle on purpose. Look, please, won't you take some of these? I've brought more than enough for our little 2-week jaunt into the interior, and I can't bear the idea that you should have to cook for a moment later without some proper seasoning. I mean, there's
She lights up with excitement at this show of goodwill towards her. and having been addressed in such a polite and formal manner, she almost feels the need to act the part, and she starts compulsively smoothing her clothing out and saying, "Oh, thank you so much. It is so good to have you here. Please, if you would like, you're welcome to rest here. Take care. If you need any assistance unpacking, I can stop for a minute and I can help you."
Please, no, I need no assistance, whatever. I'm quite used to it, but I thank you very much for the kind offer of hospitality, and I'll take you up on it.
There is a knock at the door, and you turn behind to see Andre and Edgar standing at the door in full expedition gear with heavy packs on their back.
Surely you're not planning to set out this moment.
"I'm afraid this is where we part, my dear," Andre says to you with a somewhat plaintive smile.
Well, I'm sorry you're leaving on such short notice. I was hoping to have your company for dinner at least, but needs must, and I understand wanting to make the most of every moment here.
Time is of the essence.
Of them.
There will be plenty of time to catch up on the return trip.
I hope so. The question is whether there will be the inclination. Hopefully, seasickness is the one illness that neither kills you nor gets better until you land.
You'll get used to it, and she will offer you a hug.
And I'll take it. The fact that I think she's a little bit forward doesn't put me off of her. I've dealt with all sorts of people.
It has a rather lingering quality to it, shall we say. But Edgar pays no heed if he notices at all, as is usual for him. And she gives you a little squeeze of the hand before turning and saying, "Adieu, Dr. Adams."
And you too, my dear. I hope you find everything you're looking for.
"We will," she says with a surprising level of forwardness.
Good. That's good, positive, optimistic attitude. That's what makes the scientist. I look forward to reading your publication, although I dare say I shouldn't understand most of it.
They set off inland, and it will remain to be seen if they should turn up again. As it stands, I was thinking at this point we might skip ahead to a short dinner scene, unless there are other activities that people would like to do before we bring everyone back together.
No. Just letting my stomach settle in one place is plenty of activity enough.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Johnny, anything on your end?
No, I think actually dinner probably assembles itself around Johnny while he's still just meticulously finishing those notes. So I'm good skipping to the dinner scene.
Sure. So, as far as dinner is concerned, this is going to take place in the Menage house. Again, she sort of makes herself out to be the leader of the pack. And so dinner in Port Row. It consists of, unsurprisingly, it's going to consist of mutton, along with the fresh fruit and vegetables that were brought by the Austral.
Any of the infamous cabbage?
No, as a matter of fact, they decided to go with the good ingredients
Nice.
for this particular one. Although I think if you make mention of the cabbage, there will be a knowing heeing and hawing by Claudette, who seems easily to be the most relaxed of the women. As dinner proceeds, Claudette plays ever much the caregiving mother. Pamela, the organizer, her daughter Leone, timid, quiet, and ever so fixed on Johnny. And Adele will be there muttering to herself over dinner, rocking her baby anxiously back and forth in her arms as she takes a quivering hand and periodically will stab it with a bit too much force into a piece of mutton, bringing it to her trembling mouth.
And I take it no one came back from the field, so to speak.
They'll be back tomorrow, Pamela assures you.
Oh, okay. I think I'll break out a crate, and I think we've stowed some fresh bread from the ship and some wine. Of course, it's a French ship, a French colony, so there's got to be wine, right? So I'll break that out also, and I'll say, courtesy of Captain Louis, finest captain in the South Seas.
Johnny, how do you react to the wine?
I'm excited about this opportunity, and so I toast eagerly. A toast to our successful adventure. So far, this has been everything I hoped it could be.
That's indeed. Well, then let's hope it gets even better still.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please.
I was going to say, I'll take a glass over to Adele, the troubled woman, and I'll say, what a beautiful baby. What's their name?
She sees you with a cup of wine and reacts to you as if she was just bitten by a snake. She recoils back and says, Prince of Lies, you best stay back. You with the devil's drink, you know the way that he works. You can't fool me. You'd best put your cup away and you stay behind before the great dragon comes and takes you to the pits of hell, you Satan, you. It's utterly unintelligible ramblings of someone who seems to be deeply Catholic.
I'll put the wine away. I'll pull my crucifix out and I'll say, good lady, I'm a man of the Lord myself. You've got nothing to fear from me. What bothers you? What troubles you?
I would almost like to have you roll, but maybe with the failure die in there to see if this almost makes your situation worse.
Okay. So you're going to roll a die after I roll maybe, and then compare them? Is that how that works?
We could do it that way. Are you
do I
using
just
your insight die here?
You know what? I'm going to pass. I'll just, it's probably just one die because I don't know if South Sea Sailor is going to help me comfort this woman. Although I guess I've established I'm kind of Catholic or somewhat religious. I don't know. You tell me.
I wouldn't say that's your profession.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
So let's have you roll
right
two dice. Let's have you roll two. Well, did you roll already?
I haven't. I think I'm only rolling one die, right? Just
right. Yeah, roll 2 dice and the second one's the failure die.
Oh, I see. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Here we go. I got a 4 and failure's lower, so yeah, that's pretty good.
No, that's perfectly reasonable. She will see the way you hold your crucifix, and you see this sort of softening of her face, and the softening of her face, it almost brings out the nervous wrinkles. I mean, she's not that old. She has to be probably in her mid-20s at the oldest. She can't be that much older than Leone, and yet she looks this exhausted, nearly broken woman. She sees the way that you hold your crucifix, and her hands almost automatically reach to the shard of crystal hanging about her neck. And she says, looking at you, almost speaking vacantly to herself, "Oh, such beautiful fineries, such fine jewelry, such a thing of wonder. The glory of God is within you."
Tell me, Adele, my name's Olivier, by the way. I sense trouble in your heart, in your soul. What is it that bothers you so much?
she isn't able to give you a clear answer. She will rattle off a Bible verse from Revelation. And I think what you're able to tell, I'm kind of taking this from the 4 that you rolled. I think that you're able to tell that she seems to be trying to block some internal experience she's had that is almost too terrifying for her to articulate consciously. Whatever she has encountered has driven her completely mad.
Right. Yeah, and I guess the only other thing is, like I said, tell me the name of your child, though. Who is this little beauty?
I have the name here. I just have to pull it up.
Sure. Damien.
Georgette.
Georgette.
She, with a trembling, clearly trying to go outside of her comfort zone, says, "Do you want to hold her?"
Oh, that'd be a pleasure.
She will very timidly offer you the baby and look at you almost as if you are God himself, holding her entire world in your arms. She stares at you with wide, ecstatic eyes.
I'll say, yeah, a little beauty, but a feisty one. I think you're going to be a sailor, just like me.
Give it back.
Sure. Here you go.
She begins petting its head as it starts to cry. You'll be no sailor. You'll be no sailor. You'll be a woman of God. You'll be a woman of God in a nunnery, and no harm will ever come to you, my child. None. Harriet, who are you speaking to, if anyone?
Well, the Dillers, I'll certainly speak to Pamela. I'm, at the, we're going to be setting out onto the island, and while I have my preconceived ideas as to which areas are the most likely to find nondescript things, she can tell me where the less well-trodden, or the more well-trodden areas are, so that I can avoid them, and any of the folklore on the island about unusual animals or plants, and anything like that. I'll just try to get her telling stories.
Go ahead and roll for that, and we'll see how much she knows.
Right. Well, this is using my professional knowledge. So.
A 2. Do you want to keep that roll, or would you like to re-roll with your insight die involved?
Of course, I'll roll with the insight die. Life is short. And got a 6.
Yeah.
There are no 3s, 4s, or 5s.
It's all 6s and 1s. It looks like. Well, let's go ahead and have you not re-roll, but roll an insight die to see if you go up to 4.
Yes.
So you do. I think that she tells you, "Oh, of course." And I just, out of character, what was it that you specifically wanted to know?
Oh, I wanted to, so I'm looking for places where, the naturalists have been where have cataloged some of the things on the island, but not all the places the island have had anyone go looking for them with a scientific eye. It's mostly been around the places where the colonists have been, and the early explorers and things like that. And so we're looking for for interesting nondescript things. I don't want to go up on the glacier because there won't be anything there really for me in all likelihood, but places where interesting animals and plants might be that people haven't gone, or that they've heard reports about, strange or wonderful things or specimens having been brought back or anything like that.
She says, well, there are two places you'll want to go. Of course, you'll want to go to Mount Lyall. That's the way it's spelled. I put that in the chat. And if you're interested in strange natural phenomena, you might be interested in the Black Slab. It's about 5 miles down the beach from us. Huge slab of shaped rock. It's a thing of beauty, really. And you notice that as she says this, that her face and voice takes on an almost religiously adoring quality. It's kind of the opposite of the way that Adele speaks. Rather than being religiously terrified, she is religiously submissive.
That's very interesting. Well, I'm not a geologist, but if it's just 5 miles down the beach, for goodness sake.
Oh,
I'll certainly have a look at it.
It's a thing of beauty, truly. If you'd like, I can see about perhaps putting together one of these necklaces for you.
Oh, would you? Indeed. Oh, that would be so kind of you. And my colleague Henry will want to subject it to all sorts of spectroscopic analysis when we get back home.
Well, you do seem to be a woman of science, and you would find it quite alluring, I think.
Well, I thank you so much. You're very kind. And this is so helpful when I say I make notes with everything.
She reaches into, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say she reaches into an apron and pulls out one of the shards of crystal, and she will press it into your hand and say, here, keep this.
Oh, thank you so much. I say, I'm holding it up to the light. Oh, lovely. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it.
It is a beautiful, albeit terrible thing. There doesn't seem to be any particular effect, at least immediately, to touching it or looking at it or anything like that. It's not like you're in terrible trouble at this point. Everything seems fine.
Wonderful. Well, I'll wrap it up carefully and put it away.
And Johnny, is there anyone you would like to speak to? I mean, I think at this point, Leone is eyeing you quietly and timidly over her dinner, and Claudette is making very cheerful conversation with everyone. She seems to be easily the most well-adjusted of everyone, although that's not saying much. So anything you might like to do here before we switch over to a different scene?
Actually, I think you find Johnny just so Pamela is the one who basically case closed, resolved why Johnny came out here. So I think you see like Johnny just expressing so much gratitude for the perspective that she shared, and like filling her wine glass, probably more than she wants. I don't know that I have an intention that goes anywhere, but just an expression of gratitude is kind of the last thing that I'd like before we change the scene.
And so I think that we end the scene there with everyone
Can I get a quick thing with Johnny
Oh, of course.
before we move
Yeah.
on? So yeah, I think I would go to Johnny, and I'm kind of looking back at where I came from, talking to Adele, and I see him sitting there, drinking his wine. And I'll kind of get up close to him. I say, Johnny, something's wrong. I've seen a lot of people lose their minds in the South Seas, and I think these folks are been alone for too long.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they definitely seem um, like they don't know how to interact with people from the outside. You think it's more than that?
Yeah, I mean, look outside. It's way below freezing, and it's raining cats and dogs, and their husbands aren't coming back till tomorrow. That doesn't make any sense. If they're out there, they're freezing to death. Just these 4 women and a baby. No sheep.
Pamela, tell me
And
again.
what about those weird necklaces?
Yeah, those necklaces are pretty strange. Have you seen the way they look at them?
Yeah, I'll grab my crucifix again. I say it's unholy.
I was thinking, so I have to imagine there's room in this dining area where I can pull Olivier aside and talk kind of in private. Is that true?
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining.
Sure.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I was thinking it was really weird when Odell was grasping that like it was a crucifix. I mean, I'm not a religious man, but I can see the difference between that and a crucifix.
That's right.
Think it's some sort of local folklore thing.
I don't know. I've never heard anything like that in these islands. There's no folk around for lore, you know what I'm saying?
So
These
I think
islands, no one's lived in these islands for thousands of years. Hell, Dr. Adams would probably say millions of years or some crazy stuff, some crazy science talk.
it has been dwindling, that's for sure. Um, I mean, we're just going to have to make the best of our situation, though. It's not like we can just up and go somewhere else. They're not crazy enough that they're dangerous.
I don't know. I'm going to be getting a tent. I'm going to put up a tent, and I'm going to be staying out by the boat tonight. You do what you think's right, but that's where I'm going to be. And I'll kind of go out and I'll start setting up a tent out in the rain.
And
in the blowing wind.
Yeah.
and I tell you that you're right. I'll join you. But then I go back to the festivities, and peppered in with my gratitude towards Pamela, I do want to have her remind me again why your husbands had to go out into this weather and what are they doing?
Well, the weather's always like this. It's
Yes, of course.
miserable living out here. They tend to the sheep inland. They'll be back
Oh,
tomorrow.
yes.
Yeah, the sheep, you couldn't, the sheep can't stand this kind of constant wind. I'm surprised you didn't build your houses further inland.
We didn't build these houses at all. These were what was left by the first round of colonists.
Optimists, obviously.
Well, thank you again so
Idiots,
much.
perhaps. Of course, and I do apologize for the quality of the housing arrangements, but please know that our appreciation for your presence goes beyond words. It is so good to have you here.
It's so good to be here. I'll be spending the night with names. Sorry, bear with me.
With Pamela and
Olivier. He's out staying in a tent. Don't take any offense to it. I'm really just keeping an eye on him.
wait, what? Johnny, you're going to sleep in a tent in this weather? I'm going to sleep in a tent for the next couple of weeks. But why wouldn't you stay in a house when you had a chance? For goodness sake! I mean, at least later on, we'll be inland, or at least I'll be inland. You know, away from some of this hellacious wind. You're going to actually try to sleep in this gale in a tent in the rain. Have you not taken leave of your senses?
I mean, I think
Why
that
bother
I'll
with the tent at all? Just lie on the sand and in the surf.
I'm sure
for
Oliver
goodness sake, and freeze to death.
set it up nicely. I'm sure that he's no
You
stranger
can't
to this.
pitch. I can't think of pitching a tent in a near gale force wind on the shore. I mean, you know, I'm not going to argue with him, but you don't strike me as the type who likes to rough it that way.
Look, I'm worried about him. I want to make sure that
You could worry about him and watch him through the window, for goodness sake. What do you think? He's going to go wandering off? What's the matter with him? He seemed well enough on the ship.
Same concern you have. Think about the weather. I guess I could just go out and check on him a couple times.
I would do that and stay dry. At least stay somewhat dry. There's a fire in here. You know, if you're going to freeze, you're going to freeze half to death out there, for one thing.
Yeah. I mean, it is really nice and warm in here.
We'll have, you know, if I don't know what your plans were for the next couple of weeks until the ship came, but I'd do with some company, if you don't mind, a little trip inland.
Honestly, I thought that it would take a lot more interviewing and a lot more investigation to gather the information that I have. So I'm quite free for the next couple weeks, but
Good. Good. You can help carry things. And we can have a look. This island's gorgeous. I mean, the weather's terrible, but from a scientific standpoint, it's fantastic, and the topography. I mean, the mountains, the glacier, they look incredibly beautiful, from what I understand.
And so I'd like to flash forward to Olivier kind of maybe having the tent set up and me checking in to say, Olivier, how you doing out here?
Well, it's wet and cold and the wind is howling, but I'm a lot more relaxed than I was inside that building.
Oh yeah? Are you gonna be okay through the night?
Oh yeah, I've lived in much worse than this, sailing the seas my whole life.
All right. Well,
No,
I'm gonna head
I-
back to the house over there, and if you need anything, the door will be unlocked. So if it gets too wet and cold,
So I'll stop. I'll stop us. I'll grab you and I'll grab your arm and I'll say, Johnny, here, take this. And I'll give him my crucifix and I say, you be safe. I'll see you in the morning.
he does not put it on. He just stuffs it in his left pocket and says, "Thanks, Olivier. It means a lot to me. See you in the morning."
So let me confirm, Olivier, you're sleeping in a tent outdoors. Johnny, where are you choosing to sleep?
The Menage house.
Got it. Harriet, how about you?
Since Johnny seems concerned, I'll stay with the Menages as well.
Very good. So we will cut ahead to the middle of the night. I think that as we close, Harriet, you'll find yourself beginning to experience, well, this sort of looming vague unease, this sort of general sense of paranoia. Something seems quite wrong, but it's not enough to, you know, trigger an insight roll or anything, but you definitely go to bed that night feeling off. Were you about to say something?
No. I'm just making rationalizations.
I see. Now, that being said, that night you actually begin to dream again. This is a burial dream. You have a nightmare of suffocation, entrapment, and panic. You are racked by horrific nightmares as you sleep, and this does actually call for an insight roll. You're already at 4, so I think we'll be okay.
Right.
Probably won't lose too bad here. We're already so high up.
Of course, that's because that's the way it works, right?
We're okay.
Hey, I'm going to wake up with a gasp, not a scream,
Certainly.
and just sit and catch my breath. Oh, thought I was done with those.
Now, as you wake up, you're going to notice something, but I'm going to cut over to Olivier real quick. Olivier, if anyone was going to sleep out in the tent under these conditions, it would be you, and you would actually find yourself sleeping reasonably well. As you sleep, you get this sort of sense that the rain is really hitting your tent extra hard. It's almost worse than usual. And as you kind of toss and turn a bit in your sleep, you kind of think, well, it's not really rain. It's almost like a splashing. And then you get this, it smells strange. You kind of wake up, and yeah, you're right. You hear this like shump, shump, as there's this splashing on top of your tent. Oh, and then a bit too late, you catch the nature of that scent. Oh, shit. That's kerosene.
Oh boy.
And then your tent, and by extension you, are covered in flames as someone throws a match or other torch, a lantern of sorts perhaps, but your tent is on fire. Johnny, you have the good luck to have been awoken by Harriet. You look about, and you distinctly see the flickering of flames.
Outside.
Big flames coming from outside through the windows. There is something large burning outside. You see also the form of let me make sure I get the name right. I can't believe I just forgot it. Pamela. Yes. You see Pamela standing in front of you, and Harriet actually standing at Harriet's bedside, as a matter of fact. You're seeing her back. I envision you kind of lying here, and Harriet's over here, and Pamela's standing here with her back to you, kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
The flames from outside illuminate her back, and you can see that she is been stripped from the waist up and appears to be covered in gore, like she has just gutted a fish or something. She holds at her side a large pair of shears that one might use to shear a sheep. And she has them lowered towards Harriet's throat. Harriet, you're out of the fry pan and into the fire, almost quite literally. You've woken up from this nightmare only to see the topless, covered in blood and human gore form of Pamela with scissors at your throat. I'll start with you, Harriet. What do you do here?
I hold very still and I say, Madame Menage, what are you doing?
I think
as I am trying to imperceptibly edge away, but not make any sudden move.
Johnny, what about you?
I have to imagine in private investigation, you deal with situations. And so I think the second that I see that someone's in danger, there's a perpetrator, I launch at her trying to tackle and subdue her.
Olivier, I can assume what you're going to do, but
Yeah, I'm gonna run out of my tent. Yeah, into the rain or the ocean, whatever I need to do to put the fire out.
certainly. Let's start with you, Olivier. I'd like you to make a roll with the failure die
Okay.
to see if you're able to do so unscathed.
All right. Would my instinct as a self, you were laying it out that maybe I was used to the rain and stuff. Maybe can I work in my profession on this one, or is that too much of a reach?
I'm willing to go ahead and allow it here.
Okay. All right. So I'll include my insight die too. Why not?
The advantage of letting
And-
people roll more dice is they're more likely to get sixes.
Right.
That's true. So I think I have all 4 dice. The last one is the what do you call it? The failure
Fail.
die.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Third is insight and fourth is
Third is insight, fourth is fail. Here
got
we
it.
go. Well, let's see. I got 6s.
Yeah.
You didn't fail.
I didn't fail, but I'm gonna have to roll a 6. I'm gonna have to roll insight because of the 6, right?
That is correct.
Do you want me to do that now, or do you want to wait?
Let's
till
go
after-
ahead and do that now, just to see
Okay.
if it ticks up to. I think you're at 3 right now.
Okay. I think I'm okay.
You're still at
I
3.
got it. Okay.
You will bolt out of the tent and immediately be blasted with sea spray, heavy rain, and you'll turn around to see the silhouetted form of Pamela's daughter, Leone, going from cottage to cottage with kerosene, covering all of them and lighting them, attempting essentially to burn down her own settlement. Your tent, of course, is a goner.
Mhm.
I want to go to Johnny and resolve your role here. You're going to be trying to, I think, did you say intervene or wrestle the shears away, or what are you doing?
Yeah, tackle her, wrestle the shears away, leave her pinned to the ground.
Certainly.
Before we move on, since I got a 6, could I have like grabbed like a harpoon or something from the tent? And I'm imagining it was right next to like our motor launch. Is that on fire too, by the way?
When you say motor launch,
Yeah, like we took like a little, we took
went
a
back to
little
the-
boat
went back
from
to
the
the
ship
ship,
to
didn't
the shore. Oh, it went back to the ship. Okay, we unloaded all of our stuff on the beach, and then the little launch went back to the ship. Do you follow me, David?
I follow. Yeah, the launch, I think, would have returned
Yeah,
to
that makes
the
sense,
ship
sure.
with the last sailor.
Okay.
But
Okay,
you-
so maybe I grabbed something. Is all of our gear on fire too then? All of like the whatever we brought with us?
Well, what gear you don't save from the house?
Yeah. So maybe since I got a 6, maybe could I have grabbed something useful out of the pile as I ran out of there?
I think so. What kinds of things
Okay.
would you like to have?
Like I said, probably like a harpoon. That seems appropriate, genre
maybe
appropriate.
maybe a marlin spike. Harpoons are huge.
Yeah, something like that. You know, some sort of nasty weapon of some sort.
I think that's reasonable. Sure. So, yeah, a marlin spike we can go with.
Okay.
Very good. Now, Johnny, let's get you to roll with failure. And we'll see how this goes.
All right. So 2d6, one for the roll, one for failure.
Yes.
No, but you're professional, so 3d6.
3d6.
Yes.
I think
Okay.
that's good.
That is a success.
A success without a 6. My gosh, is that really possible?
It happened this evening, guys, right here.
Shit. Now I'm unnerved.
So I think that you will just knock the shears aside. I think they will perhaps graze Harriet's cheek slightly, forming kind of a thin line of blood that trickles down, but nothing that will leave a permanent scar, at least not too prominent of one. As you wrestle her to the ground, the shears remain clenched in her fist, but you are probably a bit bigger than her and certainly a bit stronger than her.
And I'm shouting out, "What are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? What is this?"
And I think that's the point at which you hear the door open and Adele, trembling, staggers into the doorframe, silhouetted by the burning lights behind you. Of all the people in this colony who you would trust to handle a revolver appropriately,
Oh no.
Adele is not the first, and yet that's what she is leveling at you. Let her go. Let her go, you demon spawn. You
And it's like
damnable.
the hands go up.
No, this is now it's my turn to return the favor. Let's see. What is the walking stick? My walking stick is packed up on my stuff at the head of the bed, and I'm just going to grab it and bring it down across her wrists as hard as I can.
Go ahead and roll. Failure means you're shot.
Or does failure mean Johnny's shot? Was she leveling it at me or?
Well, it's leveled at you. Now, if Harriet is getting between the two of you, though.
I'm swiping I'm still getting out of bed practically.
Oh,
so
I see.
I'm just bringing it down over on her hand. So
I
Does
see.
it include
she'll drop the
failure
gun.
die?
Yes. I'll roll an insight die.
Yeah, don't get me shot.
No, I'll roll an insight die. So I'll be rolling 3d6.
Okay. Insight die is the second to last one.
Yes, insight die is the second die. The failure die is the last
Okay.
one.
You succeed. Insight die is high, though.
Yes.
So make an insight roll.
Another not 6. We're on a roll.
Mm.
Six would have been better in this case.
Ooh.
You will be going into the next session teetering. You're at a 5.
Mhm.
So a 6 on an insight roll is curtains for your character. Now that means that going forward, you have the option of destroying evidence or other connections to the mystery to try to regain some composure. We can talk maybe when the time comes about what that might look like, but you're at a 5, so you are on the edge. And I think that as you hit her, the gun is going to go off, and there is this flash, and there is this brief, I think, vision that you have as the report of the gun erupts from its barrel of some great black sun rising over a hilltop or a mountaintop. It has this profane, almost pyramidal quality. It's like a terrible disc sitting atop a pyramid. There's something horrible and profane about it, and you understand that it is miserably close.
I will shriek as in response to that, or yes.
Olivier, you are armed with Marlin Spike The cottages are all burning. Leon has successfully lit all of them, but she is tending to them and seems to be on the verge of getting back to the Menage household. What do you do?
Um, I will. I keep visualizing the end of the thing where everything's burning, everything's gone to shit. Um, I'm gonna go, and I guess she's already done with all the burning. That's kind of water under the bridge. I guess I'm gonna try to beat her back to the Menage household and try to see what's going on with Johnny and Dr. Adams.
I think as you run that way, I mean, the entirety of Port Couvreau is illuminated at this point. There's really no way to do so without being seen by Leon. But I think upon seeing you with the spike in your hand, she is such a timid thing, and you are such a grizzled, horrifying sailor man. I think she is going to drop the kerosene that clatters to the ground with a hollow sound. And I think she's going to run just into the darkness inland. I think she's just trying to escape completely.
I'm going to try to get to her, and I'm specifically going to try to rip that necklace off her neck. I feel that it's something wrong. It's wrong. I'm going to try to grab it and probably destroy it if I can, depending on how the dice go.
Let's do that, but with failure.
Okay. South Sea Sailor, probably not. Although you having the Marlin spike, I'm pretty good with that. Probably would that qualify as using my my profession? Or not?
It has a hook.
You know, and I'm sure you've fished before. I'm
So
getting
yeah,
in an Ernest Hemingway kind of way.
I'll make it more aggressive. I'm going to try to spike her in the leg to stop her. So
Sure.
if it takes throwing it, jabbing it, whatever it takes. So I'll include that. Insight. Oh, I'm only at 3. Brandon's at 5. Come on. I'll include it. Okay, so the third die is the insight die, and the fourth die is the failure die. Here we go. Well, so I have to roll insight, and
Yes.
failure has to be greater than
Yes.
my die.
Failure is not high. So
I get a
succeed,
4,
but you
I
do
have
need to roll
insight.
insight. Yes.
All right, here we go. I think I'm okay.
You're still good. Grizzled old seaman. Nothing's breaking him. So
Yeah, I throw that spike to try to stop her, and like I said, I'm trying to grab that necklace from her. Whatever a 4 will give me.
I think that if you want to get her through the leg, you will do so. It will also render her probably unable to run any further.
Right.
So you're able to get her maybe through kind of like the back of her calf or her knee or something to that effect. But she will collapse to the ground, scuffing her body up against the basalt rocks. And you will be able to tear the necklace from her.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna throw it to the ground and smash it with a rock. Plenty of rocks around, right?
Oh, all kinds. And it will shatter like glass. It is no more. And she screams as you do so. Now, Johnny, you've got a choice to make here. Gunshot went off.
Yep.
But you've also got Pamela pins down.
Yep.
How do you want to do this?
The one with the gun is really in control of this situation. So I think I roll off of Pamela, trying to seize that gun, and rise to and just kind of start pointing it at between the two of them and say, well, we'll see if I even get that far before I say things.
Let's see if you can wrest the gun away.
Yeah.
And we'll roll this with failure.
Yep. The insight, if I roll without insight and I don't like what I rolled, I add a die and roll again. Is that correct?
If you roll with insight and you still want to re-roll, you don't add an additional die, you just re-roll everything.
Okay, I'm going to add insight for this one then.
Okay.
Is it a stretch saying that this is part of my profession?
Well, it was the first time you tackled someone.
Great. I'm a professional combat investigator.
I was going to
Well,
say,
no,
you're kind
it's
of
you deal with you deal with rough people.
You do.
thinking kind of a
Yeah.
hard-boiled, detective sort of thing.
Two-fisted justice.
There, we're back to 6.
There we are.
There's the 6.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's get an insight roll, but you will be successful in wresting the gun away.
So 1d6. That's a 4.
And that's a bump.
That'll bump you up to 4.
Okay.
But you are successful in wresting the gun away. You leap up from Pamela, tackle Adele, who is unbelievably frail, and you are able to get the gun.
And I think I just push her out into the weather and point the gun at Pamela and just start saying, "You've got some explaining to do. What the fuck is going on?"
Adele is going to run. I mean, she's
Yeah.
going to take off into the darkness if no.
I expected that, yeah.
Okay. And Pamela is, unless someone works to intervene, she's going to make a go for her own throat with those shears.
I'm too shocked to intervene. I think.
I'm not intervening. I'm holding a gun at her and shooting if she goes for one of my friends. So,
and so I think we have this very poetic, albeit violent, shot of her taking the shears to her own throat, and blood courses down across the crystal necklace that she so proudly showed off to everyone just hours before. She dies in a gurgling heap of, again, seemingly religious ecstasy. I think we might go ahead and call it there for the night.
yeah, I think that's a good stop.
Yep. Sanity 5, buildings on fire. You know,
I can't wait to talk
almost
to
killed,
Olivier
almost murdered
after
in
this.
my almost murdered in my sleep. You know, what more really?
Yeah.
We're gonna. Are we going to make it away from the beach?
This is day one.
I feel strongly that there's more to this adventure, but this might end very badly.
This is reminding me of like old school Call of Cthulhu games I used to run where you had a module, you barely touched the module, people started going crazy and jumping off boats. It was great.
I will go ahead and end the recording here, and we will get together next time.